Hey everyone, I am still currently here in Hot Springs, Arkansas, and kind of the theme of the week, it's awful hot. I think the heat index is 104 right now. I'm sitting in my kayak, just finished up the KBF FLW Cup on Lake Ouachita. Everyone kind of knows I was pretty excited about this tournament, had really been looking forward to it. And needless to say, it didn't go at all like I wanted it to. Honestly, a big part of me wasn't even going to post this video, but where is the transparency in that? So, as an angler, you're not always going to have good tournaments. And as competitive as I am, and as hard as it is for me to have those tournaments that are difficult, that is where we as anglers can experience the most growth, can learn from our mistakes, and even, as I really learned this week, mental game is so important. So I am going to post my tourney recap from this tournament. Even though it didn't go my way, I'm going to kind of share with you guys what I did, and more importantly, what happens when your mind gets the best of you. Let's talk about kind of going into this tournament. I drove down on Sunday. Like I said, I was so ready to compete in this event, be on the FLW stage, compete against 74 of the best anglers in the country for this title. I would have put all the money in the world that I was going to win this tournament. I was that confident going into it. I had the right mindset. I had done my research. I knew what to expect. And needless to say, starting on Sunday night, a lot of outside factors started popping up. I was experiencing some pretty heinous comments on social media, getting a ton of very vulgar, provocative, unwarranted messages that were just pretty discouraging. A lot of personal stuff that kind of popped up, some gear issues. It started to do a number on my mental game. I ended up not getting on the water Monday or Tuesday at all. My first full day on the water was Wednesday. I got out and I felt like I had myself defeated before I even started this event. Starting off on Wednesday, I had selected a pretty diverse area that had some really good offshore potential and was an area that was known for having deep grass. I located a ton of hydrilla, a couple offshore humps, fished them hard, picked up just maybe a few bites. Wasn't really feeling too crazy about that area. I launched 2 or 3 more places that day, fished some main lake points. I did a lot of graphing. I found some deep trees that were in about 50 foot of water, but the treetops were in 25. Using my down scan, I found select trees that held brim and a bunch of bait. So I cranked those trees. I threw a drop shot down there. I threw swim baits. A variety of different things. Wasn't having a lot of luck in the deep trees. Ended up cruising shallow. Did a lot of scouting and found a ton of brim beds. And I saw several large bass patrolling the brim beds, telling me that those fish, a lot of times in the dog days of summer, that brim pattern, especially here at Lake Ouachita, can be killer. So I had that in the back of my mind kind of going into this whole thing. Despite all of that, I decided to start my tournament up the river to try to get an easy limit. I knew that the fishing had been pretty decent up there. Not a lot of large fish, but the numbers were pretty consistent. Let's go into day 1 of the tournament. All right, so it's 4 a.m. I am driving to my first launch. I'm going to just tell you really quickly a little bit about the last 2 days I've had on the water to practice for the FLW KBF Cup on Lake Ouachita. It's been pretty tough for me. I've seen some big bass. I've been on a brim pattern. I haven't tried to catch them, just kind of doing a lot of scouting. Tried to find areas where I can put up a for sure limit and even of limit fish, and it's been tough. So my plan is definitely not tried and tested. I'm going to go put up in the river hoping to get a small limit, as fast as I can, even though that could prove to be difficult. gonna try to get a limit up in the river around some current breaks. I'm gonna load my kayak up, drive to an area where I found a ton of milfoil, shallow milfoil, deep milfoil, a lot of different areas with grass. And with the weather overcast, a little bit of wind, I don't know, my thoughts are that, you know, I marked some fish in that grass, didn't try fishing for them. So that I'm gonna go, and the one thing I can do, I can grind in deep grass all day. So hope that's my plan. Like I said, I'm not feeling super good about this at all. Definitely one of my worst practices all year, but sometimes that turns out to be really good. We're gonna junk fish today and be real scrappy. And the one thing I can do, it's grind. So hoping I'm gonna start some top water. I've had some decent action on top water the last 2 days, so let's see if I can't at least get a quick limit on top water, maybe small, load up, drive about 45 minutes and start fishing again. So I guess we'll see how this goes, guys. Not expecting a whole lot, so we'll see. It's on the 5-inch Senko. Try it again. Not looking good for a quick limit. That will measure, even though it's a baby. After losing 5, 6, 7 bites, it was pretty frustrating. I wish that I would have actually pre-fished that area, got eyes on it. There was a lot of dead water. The fish were holding to very specific things, and I had already, again, mentally defeated myself even before I got on the water that morning. I kind of counted myself out. I wasn't super confident about it. My drive broke about 1.5 miles upstream. Had to float back down to the truck, get a second drive. It was just a logistical nightmare in so many ways. Needless to say, that on top of frustrations of the prior week, I was in rough shape getting back to the ramp. Very discouraged, turning in a 4-fish limit, missing plenty of opportunities to fill out a 5-fish limit. It made for a very discouraging, to be completely honest, I was this close from loading up all of my stuff, packing my bag and driving back to Nebraska to spend time with my family. I wasn't even going to compete day 2 at all. I was that wore out, burnt out, upset, frustrated, just all of it, that I didn't think I would have it in me to even compete on day 2. Luckily, with the encouragement from several incredible friends in the kayak world, all of my fellow anglers telling me, hey, pick it back up, get out there and give it a heck on day 2. So luckily, with a lot of support from my unrelenting friends, I was able to kind of just get my mind right, put my stuff together, and I decided to go to an area where I found a ton of milfoil and brim on day 2. So let's go into my day 2 and kind of see a little bit of how that played out. All right, missed 2 big blow-ups right away. That's good. Well, got that one. There's 2. Swim jig fish. Alright, and so I just missed 3 fish right there. That is not good. So again, I counted, I lost 13 fish on the swim jig. Couldn't believe it. I was throwing a 3/16-pound sand tone swim jig, and I wasn't even throwing a big trailer. I had a feeling those fish were going to short strike it, so I was throwing a Z-craw that I bit a 1/2 inch off of, and so the craws were barely extending past the skirt of the jig. So the short striking wasn't an issue. I just don't think those fish were. I throw it on a 7-1 heavy fast rod. Never had an issue on that rod. I was using 12-pound FC Sniper fluorocarbon. Also lost 3 fish on the whopper plopper first thing in the morning. I mean, how do you lose fish on a whopper plopper? It was just one of those tournaments where all kinds of things just bam, bam, bam. Losing fish one after the other. And this was a tournament where just a simple limit of 13 or 14 inches both days would have put you in the top 10. That is how tough this lake fished for everybody. I mean, this tournament held national champions, it held anglers of the year. This lake fished really, really tough for some of those people. A lot of people didn't get a limit at all. Some people got a limit day 1 and completely blanked day 2. The weather changed just a little bit. A lot of guys were on schooling fish, but with the weather and the clouds and that overcast conditions, those schoolers broke up and a lot of guys wasted a lot of time chasing them. For the people that did well, they stuck with what they had, and it was a grind. They don't call it the dog days of summer for nothing. So I had a lot of talks with the big guy upstairs after day 1. And one of the things that I always do, and it is so important for me, is that I pray for a strong one of these. And the ability to be thankful and to be humbled and be happy regardless of how my fishing day goes. So needless to say, I finished 23rd out of the 74 anglers that competed, which for me was an absolute incredible disappointment. I always expect to do better than that. I think a lot of us do. But what's really important, and what I learned, being positive regardless of what happens, is so important. And sometimes a lot of things will push us well past our breaking point. But if we allow that to continue to wear on us, we're not going to fish well, and we might as well not compete. So it kind of reminded me, it was a really good growing point for me to really remember that at the end of the day, it's just fishing. And even if it wasn't the best fishing, we're still lucky to be able to do this. Always remember, you guys, there are going to be ups and there are going to be downs. We all strive to be so successful in this, but one of the most important lessons that I can give you and that I have to remind myself daily is that tournament fishing doesn't define who we are, and our self-worth is not dependent on how we fare in tournaments. Sure, it's great to have success and to be up there, and those with that competitive nature like I have work so hard to be up at the top. But it's not something that should dictate how you feel after getting off the water. We're all gonna have tough days. That's the reality of it. The last lesson I'm gonna leave you guys with, the only thing that we can control on the water is right here. This right here. We can't control what the fish are going to do a lot of the times. We can't. So we can predict it. We can put ourselves in the best place to capitalize on the right opportunities. But a lot of things are out of our control. We can't control the weather. We can't control gear issues for the most part. But we can control this. And that is honestly probably the biggest factor when it comes to being a successful long-term tournament angler. So definitely a tough lesson for me, but what a great reminder. And that's why I decided to post this video, because it is so important to remember that and to know that it's not all great, it's not all victories, it's not all cashing checks. Sometimes it's failure and disappointment and humility. Big slices of humble pie, which all of us could use time and time again. That's so important to remain humble in this game. So hopefully, despite the tough fishing, hopefully you guys learned some good lessons here. So I look forward to doing another tournament recap. Hopefully it'll be better fishing. I've got some big ones coming up. Some of the biggest ones are going to be in the next few months. So if you guys have any questions, please let me know. Always, thank you so much for watching, and we'll catch you next time.